Dear educators, dear colleagues, you're welcome to the 12th webinar hosted by Kwan Village for the second academic year. This is our first webinar for this academic year 2021-2022. You're welcome. Today we are honored to have with us a great guest, a great educator and expert in adventure-based outdoor education, Mr. Colin Wildy. Welcome, Mr. Wildy, to our webinar today.
Hello there, everyone.
Mr. Colin Wildy, dear educators, is the director of Discovery Point Asia. He is an expert in wilderness survival skills and adventure-based outdoor education. He was in the British Army before joining the mountain rescue teams in Europe. He is also certified in many fields of outdoor activities and education, and he is a former outdoor education specialist at the British School of Gwangju. Mr. Colin's main aim is to enrich and diversify student learning experiences and personal growth. Mr. Colin believes that activities are designed to provide a range of opportunities for young people. He implements adventure-based education within the learning teaching environment using diverse, innovative, and creative methods to help students acquire and self-nurture 21st century skills, including teamwork, leadership, resilience, independence, critical thinking, social skills, self-discovery, and creativity. Welcome, Mr. Colin, again. And again, we are more than honored to have you today with us and for you to share with us all this important information about adventure-based education, outdoor-based education, which are today crucial layers of any teaching, facilitating, learning environment in any school habitat worldwide.
Hi, pleasure to meet everyone, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. So my first question, Mr. Colin, will be how adventure-based learning and education can nurture and reinforce the 21st century learner profile traits within the student.
Okay, so it's very easy to look at outdoor education and recreation just as fun, getting muddy, getting tired, running up hills. However, the importance of the activities haven't really been greatly accepted within education fields. It's mainly a treat to go on a residential trip. I think we need to look first at where people have heard about him. He was a German educationalist in the 1920s. And he,
Mr.
in my opinion,
Mr. Colin, we cannot hear you well, please. Can you repeat the last sentence? I think there's a problem with the internet connection you have there. If you can repeat the last sentence.
Yeah, hang on, too much going on, there we go. And he, as I say, he's my hero as well because of his philosophies that he's brought to the world. His philosophy was based on respect of adolescents, whom he believed possessed indecency in a moral sense. And it was actually as they get older that society corrupts them. And if students are given the opportunity for personal leadership, they then will see the results themselves as they grow. World War and
Mr.
Colin, put it together in. Hello?
Yeah, we're having a problem with the interconnection with you. Please, can you repeat the last sentence? There's a such. Yeah, please.
Hans' philosophies were formed during the First World War.
Yes.
Sorry, I have a issue with. Yeah, I need to change my view option. No. Sorry about this.
No problem.
So he started in 1920. Now, he was the headmaster at Salem School in Germany, where he introduced what he called the 6 declines
Sorry, Mr. Colin, sorry again, we cannot hear you.
Due to widespread disease of spectatoritis, which is my favorite word. And basically, we view people doing things. So we live in a culture where we have all of these social media apps and platforms that we can view other people doing the things that we wish we could do. The decline of memory and imagination, the decline of skill and care, so craftsmanship, woodworking, using your hands basically. The decline of self-discipline due to ever-present stimulants. So we have sugar, the internet, these things, probably the worst
cell phones,
stimulants ever. And also finally the decline of compassion. And what William Temple, who was the Archbishop of Canterbury at one stage in his life, came up with was the basically spiritual death in the decline of compassion. Now, Han proposed 4 areas to improve youth development: fitness training, expeditions, project-based learning, and service. And from this came what we call the expeditionary learning principles. So we have self-discovery, wonderful ideas. Some of the language is very old. So the responsibility for learning, as in self-learning, empathy and caring, success and failure. I don't know about other countries around the world, but certainly within Asia, the fear of failure is huge. And as Einstein once said, he never learned anything by getting everything right. Collaboration and competition, diversity and inclusion, not just of social elements, but also of technology and resources that we use. The natural world, and the number 9 is very key for me, is solitude and reflection. We always need to be able to reflect upon what we're doing, what we've done, and where we're going to go. And then the final thing is service and compassion. So many of the things were linked. So how can adventure-based learning nurture in our current system? Now, again, we need to look back at the past. Now, a philosopher called George Santayana said, to know your future, you must look at your past. And since I've been asked to do this, I've been doing an awful lot of research, hours and hours. Afterwards, I will share the research papers that I looked at with everybody. But I don't think we've gone much further forward with anything. I wish I would stop doing that. I look at how I was educated, and I did okay, but I see the way my children are educated, and it seems to be the same way. So I'm not sure where we're going at the moment. There's the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. They work to advise governments and large corporations how to create policies and procedures and do research projects. Now, what they're looking at for the 21st century learner is we need to prepare students for jobs that at the moment, we don't even know what those jobs are going to be. So sticking with an education system that is still stuck in the 18th and 19th century isn't really the way we're going for, should be going forward. So the 21st century learning traits, and there's much, why is it doing that? Sorry, I'm having difficulty with my computer. It keeps on showing me the slide that John's doing. The 21st century learning traits that I've looked into are put down as creativity and innovation, collaboration and communication, critical thinking and problem solving, global citizenship, technological literacy, and lifelong learner. Now, these 21st century learning traits, they seem to be just rewordings of what has come before. So are we learning as educationalists and changing what we're doing, or are we just coming up with interesting words? You have the traditional education system, which is run from top down. So the government provides curriculum, principals tell the teachers what to do, the teachers teach the students in a classroom, and then the students just memorize, in my experience. What we really are looking for is more of a knowledge-based system, which includes all of the stakeholders. So who are those stakeholders? We've got obviously the students, the teachers, the principals, but also we need to include business, the local community, the wider community, to enable us to take a path. Now, I certainly don't have the answer because people have been trying to, so I'm having real trouble with this pop-up. I'm going to have to do something right there, hopefully. So currently we work in a completely linear system, and how outdoor learning can sort of help within that system is to create different environments, different experiences that students and teachers alike can collectively learn together. Rather than delivering knowledge, we should be discovering. And that's how I think that outdoor learning and adventure-based education can actually help the 21st century learner.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I agree with you 100%. And that's why we have the 10 expeditionary learning principles, as you said, and we are 100% sure that without adventure-based learning, we cannot go from traditional education system to future education system. Without adventure-based learning, it's almost difficult to nurture the 21st century, as you mentioned, learner profile traits. So my second question, Mr. Colin.
Hello. Hello.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Colin.
Hello.
Yeah, your voice is scattering. It's not clear.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're back now.
Sorry, my internet.
No problem. You're back now. Okay. My second question, Mr. Colin, which is a, let's say, continuation of the first one. As we said, it's very, very important that we have adventure-based learning to nurture the 21st century lifelong learning. What are, in your opinion, the main governing pillars of adventure-based education, and how can we implement them in our schools?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah. What are the main governing pillars of adventure-based education, and how can we implement them in our schools?
Sorry, I'm having difficulty
No problem.
with
Take your time.
Zoom. Okay, so outdoor learning is about transforming how we teach knowledge, develop skills and attitudes, and enhance behavior. It's through discovery and experimentation and using the natural world to actually facilitate the learning experience for students. Through programs such as, but not limited to, Duke of Edinburgh's International Award, residential camps, field trips, and team building activities is the way that we need to implement. But what's the pillar and why do it? It's proven that outdoor experiences increase academic achievement. They improve personal and social well-being, as well as mental health. It gives us a respect for the natural world, and then consequently the global environment that we live in, and certainly something that our world at the moment is in great need of. By giving students the chance to experience different environments, they learn more about themselves and others around them, and so consequently become more sharing and caring. There's an educational lecturer from Edinburgh University called Simon Beams. He said, "We're not saying goodbye to our classrooms, we're opening them up."
Yes.
They have a fantastic research document, which I'll share after the event. It's very long, so I've kind of just summarized what I've been reading into it. So going outdoors, it's about engaging the students into different ways. We need to act as facilitators rather than lecturers, using a multi-sensory environment. Again, encouraging emotional, physical, and spiritual involvement within the experience. The environment is critical. Students that are within four walls are generally more anxious. So by taking the students into not just the wilderness, but also outside of the classroom, within the school, within your local community, leads to a far greater engagement. It enables them to make the connection between what's in the book and what's in the real world. Using the seasons, using time, using life cycles, we can create an ever-changing learning environment. It's about using everything that's at our disposal rather than just what's in the book. The book is the right answer, but we need students to push through, discover for themselves how they are going to make their own opinion. Certain things are fact. 1 + 1 is 2. But how a tree grows, they all grow slightly differently. So nothing is the same. So we need to provide these environments for them to engage in. So how can we do that? So early years practitioners use the outdoors a lot. In the early years schools that I go to, they use indoor areas, outdoor areas, multi-station, and the young students can go between different stations in environment, learning, And as children get older, those opportunities are taken away. And eventually when they're in secondary or in university, there are no opportunities. It's seen as a treat or a day. It's like, oh, we need to have an easy day today. Let's just go outside, rather than actually building something into the curriculum that uses many environments and multi-sensory approach. So we need to get the planners and the managers to recognize the spectrum of experiences that are available. And we need to get those managers to let curriculum designers and then therefore teachers to build them into their lessons. And there's many things that will stop that: budget, time. Later on, we're going to be talking about benchmarking, which is one of the major roadblocks to an integrated education system. So for me, we need to make connections from the classroom to the real world, to the outside world. We need to use the outdoor environments to create stimulus. We need to allow students to discover the complexities of the outdoor world. And then so they can understand the relevance of what they're actually being taught in the classroom. As I said before, another huge advantage to outdoor learning: behavior of students changes. Quiet pupils become loud. Loud students become calm because of the environment is not restrictive. So overall, everyone's learning.
Yeah. Mr. Colin, the last two sentences, we couldn't hear you well, please.
Touch something. It's far greater than somebody just telling you it. So that improves. Oh, I think my internet's back. And another key factor, which again goes to well-being, is being outdoors is less stressful than being indoors. I myself, I have one above my head. I'm allergic to fluorescent lights. So my eyes start to water. So when I was at school, I used to have time out of the classroom because I couldn't be under a light for too long. So taking health considerations as well. And if we're looking now, we have COVID. We're supposed to be socially distancing and because classrooms are so small, any teachers here, you had to teach online. And this is a very difficult experience. I myself am struggling just being online, to be honest. Yeah. So having to teach 20, 30 children must be an incredibly stressful situation for the teachers, especially. And probably from my experience of my children, with the actual students. I don't think my children learned anything online while they were in lockdown. So,
Mr. Colin, we're losing you now and then. The voice is scattered. So we can repeat the last two sentences, please. The internet connection is not stable. Yeah, so, please.
Yeah, sure. So not all schools run residential projects.
Yeah.
Now, there's been countless studies over the decades. And one of the studies that I looked at saw a 27% increase in test results and examinations compared to schools that didn't run a residential project. Mm. So that and every test that I looked at, every study had the same results with varying percentages, but they all seem to be around about 25% of increase in achievement. So that in itself is proof that doing these types of projects is a benefit. Using field trips within the subjects creates a more kinesthetic and auditory learning approach. I remember, I still remember 37, 38 years ago, going on geography field trips and I went to the River Ouse in Sussex. And I still remember the lessons that I learned on that day. So that's a long, long-term memory. You know, so doing field trips, having residential trips, improving our natural spaces within our schools. Probably, I hope everyone's heard of the hungry caterpillar.
I think so. I'm sure.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Is it Julia Robertson? I think is the author. Now, every early years school uses this book. In China, they use it, but it's translated to Chinese. But what better environment to read this book in a wildlife garden where you have buddleia planted, where you can actually see butterflies and caterpillars and other insects. So rather than just imagining, we can actually physically see. And what other experiences can we take from that? How do, you know, we can use music, we can use science, multiple subjects can use this environment. And one particular advantage, which is more of an Asian thing in my experience, but I believe it's also in Australia, where myopia or short-sightedness is huge. In China, especially, I would say 60% of children wear glasses because they do not spend any time outside. And that's very true, especially true in China. The sun is bad in China. Many reasons for that. But just by going outside for 30 minutes a day in one period, you get enough, you absorb enough vitamin and mineral to actually prevent short-sightedness. So, you know, there's a Swedish study was conducted in 2010 where they compared a traditional nursery to their new forest school type nursery. And they found, again, motor skills were higher. The students were less frustrated. They were completely attentive, not completely as children are, but more attentive. And they were less sick than their counterparts that didn't get to experience the outdoors. Now, forest schooling is a huge thing starting, especially amongst the Nordic countries. So we need to take opportunities that we've got, because you can't just go from zero to full program.
Yeah. We
need to introduce what we can as quickly as we can. So, for example, we can have a vegetable garden where the students can plant, nurture and grow, and then the school can be using the vegetables, or the students can be using the vegetables in cooking lessons. We need to have the people with knowledge, so science technicians, science teachers should be involved in developing the outdoor learning space from a science base. Physical activity. One thing I noticed from my friends and my own family during COVID, the first thing to go, PE. Oh, we've not been in school for...
Yeah, remove PE automatically.
We've not been in school for such a long time. In fact, at my daughter's school, all the PE teachers had to stop teaching PE and become classroom teachers because they don't see physical education as being important.
Important, yes.
You know,
I agree.
You can get the catering and janitorial staff within education facilities to develop composting systems with the students so they can actually see this benefit. We need to work with outdoor partner organizations and the local community. I've already mentioned wildlife gardens. Very key. We need to develop the outdoor areas that they can be used all year round. Now I live in, sorry.
Yeah.
I live in South China. It's very hot. So we have a problem with too much heat. So we need to develop shaded areas, but there'll be countries, Canada, etc., where it can be too cold. We need the stakeholders, what I call the PTA, the Parent Teacher Association. We need to get suitable clothing, you know.
Yeah, Mr. Colin, we cannot hear you again.
Develop this
Mr.
stimulating environment.
Mr. Colin, sorry, we cannot hear you again. Can you repeat the last two sentences, please?
Ideally, we need to give the indoor teaching areas. Maybe make it a little bit more wild in some areas. I think my internet's gone. There we go. And then we need to encourage the curriculum designers to build outdoor education and learning into the full plan, not as an add-on.
Yes, I agree. Mr. Colin. And that's why Maria Montessori, the great educator, God bless her soul, she said once, the moment the students will feel that we are teaching them, they will not listen to us. And without adventure-based education and outdoor-based education, it's almost impossible to create that learning and facilitating environment in which the student will not feel that we are teaching them. And that's why Classroom Without Borders today, worldwide, became a very important approach and a layer of different curricular approaches. And they're trying schools to implement that and to make sure that the students are going to spend only 25% of their time in their classrooms and 75% outside their classrooms. And that's a very, very important topic. And I agree with you. But the most important, we are restating again here that adventure-based education, outdoor-based education must become and must be a crucial layer in the curriculum of the school, not just an activity and just, okay, we took them for half an hour, they had fun and come back. No, it must be a crucial layer that will help and that must help, and it's essential to help the students reaching their learning outcomes and becoming lifelong learners. It's almost impossible to do it without outdoor and adventure-based education. Yes. Now, question number 3, Mr. Colin, for you. Can we state bluntly today that adventure-based education is considered a significant catalyst for today's STEAM's education, and why?
So STEAM learning, or STEM, depending where you are on the spectrum at the moment, is an activity that can happen inside and outside the classroom. And in fact, outside of the classroom, because we're dealing in this more sensory environment, it's more effective. I myself run quite a few STEAM projects with schools and groups. Now, outdoor learning in today's education system is considered a new thing. But as we've already discussed before, it started like within education in 1920 and before. And if you actually look at standardized education didn't come around until the 18th century with industrialization. Now, before that, how did we learn? We learned through play. We learned by doing. We didn't go to school. We just did things. We used our hands. So for me, outdoor learning is the primary. It was the first learning tool that ever was. So it being a catalyst, 100%. I think without the outdoor learning and adventure learning, STEAM doesn't exist. Because we've always learnt through this method. We've just put a label on it now. And obviously the benefits of STEAM education, I think, are there for all to see. Using a cross-curricular approach to actually deliver an enhanced learning experience. But by using the outdoor world, we enhance that experience. Science, maths, why just learn it from a book? Why not go and experience it? It creates a far deeper understanding of the subject. Students in an outdoor environment are more curious and they work together far better than in an indoor environment, and they come up with creative solutions to problems, which is the pure principle of STEAM learning.
Yes.
Is to actually utilize the curiosity and exploration to discover for themselves, rather than being told the answer, find the answer.
Yep.
And it might not be the answer that I had. It might be a different answer, form an opinion. You know, and then, as I mentioned before, my experience of doing river studies is information that I still retain.
Yep.
And whereas what I learned from a book, maybe not so good.
Yes.
Yes. You know, so definitely as a catalyst, as the start, and as a benefit, outdoor learning is key for this to, again, to be used in a knowledge-based system.
Yes, yes. I agree 100% with you, Mr. Colin, based on my experience of 33 years as a principal, vice principal educator in different countries. I agree it's almost impossible to integrate STEAM's education or STEM education or STEAM education within the four walls of the classroom. It's almost impossible to do it. And that's why sometimes we cannot make it, because we're changing just some small components of our learning environment without changing the general approach. The general approach must be classroom without borders. General approach must be adventure-based learning, outdoor-based learning. We're just changing in the curriculum some small details, and we want to do, let's say, STEAM education. The environment must be STEAM's, so we can implement the STEAM's education. And as you said, for that environment to become STEAM's, we need outdoor, we need adventure-based education. Yeah. And of course, dear educators, you have any questions, we will have a lot of time at the end to ask them. You can ask them live, or you can post your questions in the Zoom chat box now, and Mr. Colin will be very, very happy to answer them all at the end of this discussion. Question number 4, Mr. Colin. Most educators worldwide consider adventure-based learning and education the leading promoter of research, teamwork, leadership, and innovative problem-solving skills within our students. Do you agree with those educators, and why?
I do, yes. So every instructor, teacher, educationalist amongst us, we all know that just covering a topic doesn't guarantee learning. Students, especially as they get older, they spend hours in lessons, hours in lectures. They review content, then they re-review it, then they review it again, and then they take a test. And where outdoor learning and adventure learning is different, it's generally team-based, which allows us to get past this role of memorization of facts. It's actually absorb the information rather than just memorize it. We're using diversity of resources, culture, and inputs to solve problems rather than memorize information from a book. Again, it's a huge issue in Asia, where memorization, especially in China, is the way of education. And they're approaching a change at the moment, which is very exciting. But by using the outdoor, having team building, having risk, a managed risk, so students can experience success and failure as a group. Now, I myself spend most of my time running around mountains with students. The preparation for the Duke of Edinburgh's International Award Adventurous Journey is a perfect example where students have to collaborate, plan, and what we do, we use Kolb's learning cycle, plan, do, review at every stage. So they plan their activity, they do it, they review it, and then they have to go back and replan to make it better. We don't give them the answer. We get them to discover where they went wrong, how they can improve. And even if participants have been completely successful, there are always lessons to be learned. I myself try and learn something new every day, and fingers crossed remember it. This is the main thing where feedback and how feedback is given. And using this Kolb's learning cycle, it's not feedback as in the teacher telling the students what they did wrong. It's about the students becoming aware what they did wrong, what they did well, and how they can improve upon everything. Yes. And that's how I think outdoor learning builds this.
Great, and I agree with you again, and I'm sure all the educators agree. That's why we went now, Mr. Colin, from teaching to facilitating, because what happened before is we stayed for 1 hour in the classroom, 95% the teachers talk, the students shake their heads, yes, and then as we said, they do the exam, a summative exam, they got 100 over 100, but ask them a question after 2 or 3 months, they forgot everything because they memorized, as you said. That's why we don't teach anymore. Our main task, main mission is to facilitate the inquiry and the acquisition of knowledge and skills to our students. That means we create that environment that they will learn by doing, they will learn by themselves. We facilitate for them that process so they will never memorize. On the contrary, they will learn, as you said, from their mistake. They will try, and by trying, by acquiring knowledge, by acquiring skills, they will never forget that. They will become lifelong learners. And to do that, again, you need adventure-based, outdoor-based education. Question number 5, Mr. Colin. Many educators consider knowledge-based education, knowledge-based adventure, one of the best methods and approaches leading to complete horizontal integration and one subject called knowledge benchmark. Please, you can explain to us the different strategies schools must follow and adopt to reach the one subject called knowledge benchmark via knowledge-based education.
Okay, so benchmarking is the popular way to define good practice, measure performance, and identify gaps in learning, in everything that we do. But it leads to what's called a league table mentality, and it reduces collaboration between businesses, between departments, between schools. I'm sure the teachers here have heard about league tables of schools, where this school's better than that school, and as educators, you become more concerned about achieving this benchmark where somebody has said, this is what we need to attain. In the United Kingdom, we used to have the O-level system, and then we moved on to GCSEs. Now, with the idea of the GCSEs was completely destroyed by business, because it came around, it was supposed to be project-based learning. It was supposed to give exam, but know the information, have other attributes that would benefit society and companies. So that, yes, they might not get an A star because they can't sit that final exam. And GCSEs was supposed to be the method of making it fair, more social. And business ruined it by basically going, what's the equivalent mark for an O-level pass? And that mark was a C. So now on every job application, it's please list your GCSEs at C and above. So an attempt to improve an education system was basically pegged back by old ideas and people not wanting to change, which was a shame. And
Yes.
I was one of the first years to actually take that exam. And now you look at it, they've got rid of most of the coursework.
Yes.
Most of it, it's all gone back to examinations.
Yes.
So it's effectively the old O-level system all over again.
Yeah.
And they've gone through that full cycle. Cycle all the way back to O-levels.
Mr. Colin, we couldn't hear the last sentence. Can you repeat it, please, because of the internet connection?
So the negative aspects of benchmarking, creating these league tables, creating, oh, I think my internet's gone again.
Yeah, the last two sentences, please.
Yeah, so
Sorry.
Creating league tables, creating brackets where we need to put, all students need to fit into these brackets. And it doesn't work. And the way we teach all of our subjects independently, rather than using knowledge-based learning, where everything is on a horizontal integration. So do science and maths and outdoor learning, language, do everything all at the same time. Make the learning experience a far more enjoyable experience for the learners and actually the teachers. I think if teachers don't have this pressure of this benchmarking, then they themselves can be more creative in the way that they deliver the lesson. But again, by letting the curriculum designers, so governments let the curriculum designers have a bit more freedom, that gives the teachers more freedom to then utilize these areas outside, inside, everywhere, using different resources to get their approach. One size does not fit all. Yeah. Yes, we're dealing with the masses, so there needs to be some form of standardization, because you can't teach, I should have Googled this, but I don't actually know how many children there are in the world, but I imagine there's several billion.
Yes.
We can't teach them all individually, so there is always going to be
standards,
a middle ground. But by using knowledge-based learning, we determine prior what the students already know, and we build upon it. Not by using this idea of exams and tests to see if they've achieved. Find other evaluation, and that evaluation is self-evaluation, group evaluation, where students evaluate other students and themselves, rather than the teacher saying. So how does outdoor learning come into that? Now, I think going back to my idea before, that we've always learned through outdoor learning, using our hands. When I was a child, I used to run around the forests. I used to run around with my friends. We'd play cowboys and Indians, or whichever is your social, cultural thing. The game was formed in our mind. And what we've done, although beneficial, we've actually taken everything over to our phones.
Yeah.
So the idea now is, and I don't particularly like this game, it's called Minecraft, but my son's school, he's always on this iPad.
Yeah.
They're always using an app when they have the outdoors. It's the perfect resource to feed imagination by delivering scenario-based education and allow the outcomes to come through the lesson. I've run 1 and 2 day sessions for schools where I take a story. My favorite is using Jules Verne. And I have great pleasure because I get to read the book again. And then I identify activities or plots that have happened within the story. And I create an activity based around that using the narrative of the story. So they get to do science. So we do water purification, building catapults, building pulleys, doing all of these things. So they're doing maths, they're doing science, they're doing English, they're doing foreign language, they do all of these things that they get to do. So, you know, that's the way I utilize in my methods.
Yeah, we agree with that 100%, Mr. Colin. I think everyone must use it, and I'm sure that all of them are using it. And here we can state again that if we want to reach to one subject large, we want to reach to full horizontal integration, if we want to reach to a world where formative assessment is the basis to assess our student and not summative, okay, we need outdoor-based learning, we need adventure-based learning, because those are the two important layers to reach to this environment of formative assessment, to this environment of horizontal integration, to this environment of real-life-based education. My sixth question, Mr. Corner, will be, why is knowledge-based education considered one of the main components of the Classroom Without Borders pedagogical approach?
Okay, so outdoor learning is, as I said before, it's putting students in a managed risk area where we facilitate them to face challenges, achieve. They find the answers. They find the challenges first, then they find the answers. They work through as a team. Everything that we want for society is people to work together, to be able to problem solve, to think about how do we get from A to B. I mean, one of the very simple example is I take students on the adventurous journey. China, they're not very good. I don't tell the students which way to go. I don't say left or right. I let them go left. It might be the wrong way, but they have to find out that it was the wrong way. If there's danger, obviously I step in. But if there's no danger, it's like, yeah, let's find out where this goes. And sometimes they take me down a path that I don't know where it goes. And I learn. And by using this method of trial and error, success and failure, collaborating within their group, collaborating with other groups to source. So the students start to learn the process that they need to go. School's about learning how to learn, the steps we need to follow. So one of probably the most commonly said thing is probably about maths and some of the more extensive subjects like quadratic equations and things like that. I've never used a quadratic equation in my life apart from in school, but I was forced to memorize it and things like that. That's fine. But if somebody had actually given me more of a scientific, not scientific, hands-on approach to this learning, not necessarily quadratic equations, it was something that would instill in me. Hence, as I mentioned, the river field trip. The lessons I learned on that day have been with me ever since. Whereas when I had to memorize quadratic equations, which I would like to point out, I failed at memorizing because I had no idea how to do them. It wasn't successful, you know, and that's how by doing benchmarking and using exams, we just force students to memorize. Year 5, 6 are the same. You learn something in year 4, you redo it in year 5, you redo it in year 6. So take a test to go into secondary school or whichever system that your country uses. And then we start again. We go year 7, we do something, then we do it again in year 8, again in year 9, again in year 10. And then we get to year 11, which in my opinion is one of the biggest waste of years, because all teachers are forced to do because of benchmarking and league tables is to revise.
Past papers.
Oh, remember how to do this, remember how to do this, remember how to do this. And then they take the exam, they get their mark, and then they forget everything.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I
and
agree.
in no way was I taught a learning process. Whereas by using outdoor learning and outdoor education with the other subjects and the other disciplines, it creates a method of learning.
Yeah. I agree 100% with you, and I'm sure all our educators agree with us. And again, any questions, please, you can place in the Zoom chat box, and I'm sorry, at the end, you can ask those questions live too. Question number 7, very, very useful and very important session today, Mr. Colin. Really, we're receiving a lot of feedback from our attendees. They're very happy and very satisfied from all this information. So question number 7 here, the question is very, very important. There are many programs worldwide, you know, like IB, British program, American program, French program, Finnish program, etc. A lot of them. In your opinion, which program is considered top 1 host of adventure-based education or outdoor-based education? It's a very tricky question. So tricky one, very tricky one. Yeah, you'll be in trouble with someone.
Oh, let's hope I don't upset anybody. So that's a really difficult question to answer. I think we all have our own bias, which is based upon our own experience, and that could be a positive or negative bias. I'm quite lucky that my experience I've been educated all over the world, but mainly under the British GCSE system. But we do need to have some kind of yardstick. Adventure education is the promotion of learning through adventure-centered experience, as a sort of definition. As we've already said, utilizing outdoor learning and adventure education enables everybody to achieve learning at different times and in different ways. And I think that's the critical thing. The type of learner that you are is by sticking to the benchmark system of the 18th century standardized system that we're still within, is very narrow corridor, and it doesn't allow. So as John said, Montessori, Rudolf Steiner, all introduced different approaches. But as time is marching on. I will give you, in my opinion, the standout countries. So my very top standout country would be Denmark. Denmark introduced outdoor learning and adventure education over 30 years ago. And they have, and anybody from the Nordic countries, I will apologize for my pronunciation, Udeskool or Forest School is, and they are now seeing the benefits of those students that have come through from the inception of them introducing this program. Those students now are leaving university and are entering the business, and they've got far more rounded students with greater experience. So there's one, and just a small fact, that within Denmark, they are seeing an increase. So in their first years, the increase of this practice was 28%. The next year, higher, more schools adopting this approach. And then the next country, Finland. Now, again, we could probably argue about this, but I believe Finland is regarded as having one of the best education systems in the world.
Yes.
Now, there are many reasons for this. One, they do not start educating until the age of 7 in schools. Children don't start school until 7. So they have from baby to 7 to experience
Life.
Learning in the natural environment. And the theme for the Finnish education is actually responsibility for the environment, well-being, and building a sustainable future. So this is massive. And again, Finland started many years ago on this path, and they are now starting to see the university leavers as the product of this benefit. And the Nordic schools especially, they have adopted outdoor learning, adventure learning, and now are seeing the benefits of this. And Finland started this approach in the 1950s. So there are further benefits to that, not benefits, but factors that in the Nordic countries, parents they're not paid to stay at home, but they are given help to stay at home and educate their child from 1 to 7, to take them they don't have daycare, which is how a lot of education systems in the world, I think, are viewed. It's like mum and dad have to go to work, send them off to school. And as long as they're not getting arrested, life's good. You know, Singapore is a country. So it has a huge issue that it doesn't have much landmass. But it's a very large population in a very small area. And they used to defend the environment that they had. They used education. So the Singaporean system started in 1967. And again, they are one of the most successful countries in the world economically. Their education system is again regarded one of the best. Very high. I wouldn't necessarily want to say which one is the best. And my last country, now this isn't necessarily the best education system, but more of a idea of the country. It's New Zealand. Now New Zealand has just the ethos of outdoors. So I need to their whole culture is based on being outdoors. And I know Australia is also very high up there. Physical education, outdoor learning, outdoor sports, very, very high on where they want to be. And it shows. You look at the population. We're talking small population countries. If you take Australia, I think 90% of the population lives within 100 kilometers of the sea. I'm looking at the only Australian I know for a nodded approval there.
She said yes. Yes. She's approving it.
And it's not a large population, but look what Australia achieves in the world. I would say it's a small fish hitting way above its weight in a very big pond, socially, economically, science-wise. And this is done because, again, this ethos is actually within their culture. So there was a article put in Education Sciences by Sue Waite in October 2020. And they had a survey conducted in 19 countries, and it had over 80 expert commentators taking part in it. And the survey that they did, which again I will share with the group later, identified 5 key traits that outdoor learning and adventure-based. So it's healthy bodies and positive lifestyles, social, confident and connected people, creative and self-regulated learners, effective contributors and collaborators, and care for others in the environment. This is what the science identified as the main pillars. And don't correct me if I'm wrong, but they sound also very similar to Kurt Hans.
Yeah, 100 years ago.
So again, are we designing something anew, or are we just going in a circle again? They also looked at what was preventing students from increasing and learning. And one of the things that came out from this study was the reason why schools, governments do outdoor learning, including PE, as in, is purely for healthy bodies. It's people are getting fat, people are getting diabetes. We need to get, that's the only reason that they do anything outdoors is for PE. And outdoor learning is more than PE.
Yes, it's a crucial layer in education today. And as we proved it in the last at least 1 hour, 10 minutes of that, it's one of the main layers of the multi-layered curriculum, one of the main layers of real life-based education, one of the main pillars of STEAM's education, one of the main pillars of going out from the summative assessment and reaching formative assessment. So it's everywhere. Without adventure-based, outdoor-based, you cannot survive and you cannot reach lifelong learning nowadays. Anything to add on this question? Please go ahead.
Yeah, it was one of the other things. Again, this is sort of, if anyone from government is listening, one of the factors that these over 80 contributors to this study came up with, lack of funding was the main problem of doing it, and also pushback from traditional educationalists and business, because they still want that benchmark.
They don't want to change.
And we need to break it. We need to break that mold and encourage all the stakeholders to come up with something, because I certainly don't have the answer. I'm doing my own little bit in my own little way. But we need people with bigger brains than myself, and people like myself and people like you to get involved in the conversation and encourage change. And not change just for change's sake. No more buzzwords, no more No more relabeling what's
Yeah.
been in the past.
Yeah.
Let's come up with a new plan.
Yeah, we don't want balloons. We want real change for the sake of our new generations. I agree. Yes, yes. Question number 8, Mr. Colin. Today, educators do not teach anymore, as we said, but they facilitate the inquiry and acquisition of their students' knowledge and skills. Of course, that's the aim. We're trying to reach there. Students' knowledge and skills. Do you agree with this statement? And how the adventure-based education approach can help facilitate and not teach?
Okay, there's another difficult question, and explosive. So I will apologize at the start. Very simply, no, I do not agree. I think, as I've said many times, but I think education is still stuck in 18th century literacy, standardized education that was introduced in the Industrial Revolution. And we just keep on going in cycles. My now ex-mother-in-law was a teacher for many years in the United Kingdom. Now, she would obviously have, I think she taught for over 45 years, something like that. Mm-hmm. Now, a new plan would come, a new idea, and all she would do is reach back to her bookshelf, dust off an old binder, and go, yep, I've got the plan for the year, because it's happened before, as I was saying before. We're trying to teach students this idea, but we're being hamstrung by traditionalists, staying with this 18th century. We keep on going in this cycle of what is a new idea, and it's not. It's just an old idea with a new title. As a parent, I see huge holes in what my children should be able to do. But their report card says that they're fantastic, so that's all good. To be fair to them, I do see new skills as well, stuff that I have to learn how to do myself now. But there are things that I think they should be able to do, very basic things that they can't, which leads me to probably, I think one of the biggest problems that we have is actually the use of technology in our education. It has not been integrated into our system very well. One of my favorite quotes is Google will give you 14 million results in 0.78 seconds.
Yeah.
The librarian will give you the right books to read. And that's what I see when I look at my children, and I see in society. I see the fact that we get a question, we type it into our search engine, and we look at the first 3 to 5 things that come up, and whatever they say, that's our opinion. Yeah. Whereas when I was taught in school, it's almost like the whichever kind, Rupert Murdoch newspapers. What they say, that's society's view. When I was at school, there was no internet. We had to go to the library and get books and read them and make an opinion from difference and then justify that opinion. Whereas now, cut and paste it from the internet. There we go, done. Yep. I'm not belittling teachers. I'm not belittling student achievements. I think education nowadays is way harder than when I took lessons. There's so many different things that they have to do, and they have to fit it into the same time frame. Probably less now with our revision and having to take so many tests and so many exams. They have even less time to do it. And we're using this linear system that doesn't allow freedom for them to do. I've been involved in international schooling now for many years. And you would assume in international schooling, where high-priced education, private education, that the resources and the talent are limitless. But they're not, because we use this benchmarking system.
Yes.
Which you can throw as much money as you like at it, but as long as you stick with this benchmarking, doesn't work. And as I said in the previous question, we need to get all of the stakeholders to get involved and come up with this. Difficulty is so many systems, so many opinions. How do we fight through what it is? But I certainly think we can agree that what we have at the moment doesn't function.
Yeah.
And using outdoor learning and experimental learning is the way forward. All systems, benefits to the British
Mr.
CSE
Colin,
system,
Mr. Colin,
the
we lost
Australian
you.
system,
We lost
the
you again.
American
The
system.
last
They
two
all have
sentences,
positives,
please.
they all have negatives.
Sorry, Mr. Colin, we lost you again, the internet connection. If you can just repeat the last two sentences.
Yeah, sure.
Yes,
yeah, so we need to utilize and look at the positives and negatives of all of the systems, utilizing outdoor learning and outdoor adventure learning and experimental learning to do that. I mentioned before, the early learning that happens where children go inside and outside, they spend 5 minutes here, they spend there. As soon as they get to primary school or whichever system in your country, it stops. It's like, right now, you're going to sit at a desk and that's you until you finish university. The opportunities for experimental learning and outdoor learning are so limited, and they're almost seen as a reward.
Yep.
You just it's like, oh, you've done really well today, kids. Let's go out in the playground.
Yes, yes.
No, it should be, right, we're going to be learning about trees. Let's go outside. We're going to be doing science experiments. Let's go and see what we can do outside. All of these things, rather than just sat in the book.
Yep,
yep. The book is one answer. And I mentioned trees before. Outside, this is how a tree grows. Yeah, but that tree doesn't look like this tree. Why doesn't it? Suddenly, curiosity builds. And that's just one example. And you can build that across all subjects.
Yes, yes. I agree 100% with you, Mr. Colin. And that's why we're going now to question number 9. We all agree that students do not acquire knowledge and skills passively, but we need to establish, as you said, an appropriate, active, exploratory, interactive, and energetic habitat where students can invest their emerging creative and innovative capabilities to acquire the relevant knowledge and skills actively. Many educators see in adventure-based and outdoor-based education approach one of the best ways, as you said, to establish that habitat. Can you give us some examples of how we can establish this needed and crucial habitat, please?
Well, I think I've approached this question
many times,
many times already. So, like, to summarize it more than anything, we need to introduce outdoor learning and adventure-based education into all curriculums, from pre-K all the way up to K-12, K-13, university. We need to introduce significant resources, time, money, not just within education. We need to give places to go. I'm very lucky to be involved with a government project here in China, where I'm helping to put outdoor spaces into what they're going to be having, like provincial parks or like a national park system. So China is very exciting at the moment, that China, which has a pure memorization learning system, has just gone, this doesn't work. And they're going to start with a clean slate and hopefully, touch wood, introduce a system. It's All the stakeholders need to get involved, businesses, community, further community, other countries. We need to give the curriculum designers the freedom and the teachers the freedom, as I said before, to teach something. I think learning opportunities happen. Even poor behavior is a learning opportunity. You don't need to shout at children because they're doing something wrong. You need to approach them in a way that you can use it as an experience, a learning opportunity for all of the group to achieve. And being stuck inside a box doesn't do that.
I agree.
I myself was not, my teachers, one of my report cards actually said, Colin is a plodder. He gets there in the end, but he's a very nice person. You know, I wasn't this learning machine. I wasn't able to do tests. I was a good kid, so I was always put into top set because I was a nice kid. I was a good kid. I wasn't serviced well by my education system, and through self-learning, I've managed to improve. Through experience of being in the military, being in the outdoors, I have taken lessons. So very simply, we need more resources, more time, more field trips, more outdoor time, more everything.
Yes,
you know,
I agree.
More freedom, you know. So, and I think the critical shift also needs to include business. Where how do we assess? You know, getting away from this benchmarking, looking at the attributes that a person has. I'm sure everyone here has written a CV.
Yes, of course.
That CV is purely, I mean, I have to read CVs all the time, and it's purely for me to sort through very, very quickly. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. All based on a small snapshot of our life where we need to look at people differently. And that way, we start looking at people differently, a knowledge-based education system will be more greatly accepted.
Yes, I agree 100% with you, Mr. Colin. Question number 10, and we have one more question, and then we can have all the questions asked by our educators, our attendees. Many facilitators face enormous challenges to differentiate within their facilitating learning environment. Can we consider adventure-based education approach a significant way to simplify this very difficult differentiation process? But it's easy, but because we don't have the habitat to do it, sometimes we face problems. Simplify this differentiation process, and how?
So the learning environments have always been considered crucial to learning. And we were saying about the four walls not being the best environment for positive learning. There's so many studies out there that show having different environments, having multi-sensory environments builds a more motivated, engaged cohort of students, which ultimately leads to a higher overall ability and attainment. Teachers are limited by their schedule, the preparation time that they're given, the meetings that they have to attend. I feel so sorry for teachers that, and my ex-wife was a teacher for 25 years and still is. She has so many meetings with so many people, like huge, like 30, 40 people. I'm not sure if it was Bill Gates or Stephen Jobs that said he would not have a meeting with at any time that 2 pizzas would not be enough to feed them lunch. Teachers, schools seem to have countless meetings all the time that just take up the teacher's time to create interesting learning experiences. And then because they don't have the time to think about, oh, I'm doing butterflies. Let's go out to, I saw out round the back of the school, the Budley, let's go out there. They've just too much pressure on them to get these students to attain this benchmark. Now, this can be easily fixed by management, by reducing it. I think a key thing from my own experience is that managers have to trust teachers that they will do their job. No more having to be in the school door by 7:30 in the morning and you can't leave until 4:30.
Yeah.
You know, you need to trust your staff that they will do a good job. You employed them for a reason, because they were interesting, motivated educators. Give them the freedom to do that. Give them a curriculum that enables them to do that, and introduce the whole school outdoor learning approach that you put money into. You don't need more iPads. You don't need more computers. What you need is more sensory and multi-approached areas where different subjects can come together and teach subjects together. And that way we get a far better rounded individual. And we see the benefits that the Nordic countries are seeing with their university graduates coming through. Finnish business, Danish business, going through the roof.
Yes.
You know, whereas the old traditional sort of standards, the British system, which is stagnated and being pushed back by traditionalists. And I would say one of the major changes we could do is look at the people that are actually forming the education policies. Our governments are run by, to want a better word, old people that went through education in the 1930s. We need people that are new, have got fresh ideas, actually understand the modern world. You know, we need to listen to the students. They, again, listen to what do they want? Because we are currently just keep on throwing them the same pile of rubbish over and over again.
Every year.
And every 20 years, every year we go, oh, I've got a new idea. No, we just changed the verb.
Yes.
We need to actually change everything. It's time to start again. You know, and countries need to communicate the positives and the negatives. You know, the Chinese education system, their memorization system has got some benefits. It has a place, but it shouldn't be the whole thing. It should be a little bit. And then this should be a little bit. And then everything to build the whole. So going back to this linear knowledge-based experimental learning.
Yes, yes, I agree 100%. My last question, and then we'll have the questions of the attendees of our colleagues, is going to be about your great mission in Discovery Point. Which is considered one of the pioneers of adventure-based education. Can you give us, please, a brief about the sacred journey in education, serving the sacred mission of education?
Okay, so yeah, my journey, I've seen a bit of it, but very varied, very different cultures. And I think I've done a pretty good job at learning myself. My company, we are a youth achievement company. We provide opportunities for students and adults to experience outdoor learning, STEAM learning, musical education, which I think is a huge thing that we should be musical or theatrical activities attain higher achievement, because I think my internet might have gone.
It's okay. Continue. Before,
yeah,
okay. Continue.
Yeah, they attain higher achievement. They learn skills. They have the ability to learn the violin. The practice that needs to go in to learning the violin is huge. One of my teachers, there's a 3-year-old who plays violin incredibly. 3 years old, she's already up, I'm not sure how many levels, right? And this is using like experimental teaching practices that they've managed to achieve by taking students climbing the risk. Students are so scared to fail and experience new things. By doing things like climbing, which is a risk managed activity. But when you're climbing the rock face, your mind doesn't remember you've got the rope.
Yeah.
You know, by doing team activities. So
Again, we lost you, Mr. Colin. Mr. Colin?
By undertaking projects such as Duke of Edinburgh, by doing the BCAS program with the schools.
Mr. Colin, can you repeat the last sentence? Because again, we lost you in the internet, please. Can you just repeat the last sentence?
Yeah, so by giving opportunities for students and adults to undertake challenges, learn skills in an environment that isn't within 4 walls. That's my driving factor. And then by working with schools, with governments to promote areas, promote programs, is a fantastic journey that I'm loving. And it's so different from where I thought I was going to be when I was in school, because I was going to be an architect. And now look at me. I got to university and I was like, yep, don't like this. And I changed. And from that, my path has taken me all over the world. And I've met so many people and experienced so many different things. And I think that's the important thing, that we have to provide these experiences for people, not just sitting behind a desk. That's it.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Colin. Really, we're happy that you selected this journey, because by doing this journey, you help a lot the sacred mission of education. And the world needs great educators like you, because as we all know, education is the last stronghold between humankind and auto-destruction. If that stronghold is down, we are doomed. So we need great educators like you to make sure that stronghold is lasting and spreading and is changing for the better, to have students right for today, ready for tomorrow, and for a better tomorrow. And today, of course, as a conclusion, I can say that we need a real life-based education to make sure that our students are lifelong learners, investing the acquired knowledge and skills to improve their life and lead their future to their different horizons of success. Today, we need to break our schools' walls and classroom destructive borders to become the needed future leaders for a better tomorrow. Today, we need to establish, as you said, STEAMs and one subject called knowledge education, to understand that the real world is based on a holistic approach and not diverse subjects approach. Today, we need to overcome the 21st century challenges for our students to excel in their lives and our lives. Today, we need to establish Kurt Hahn's 4 antidotes to erase the 6 declines of modern youth from our daily life struggle. Yes, today, we need adventure-based education to reach all the above. Yes, adventure-based education, outdoor-based education is not only a major pillar of the 21st century education, but it represents the main force and might to reach the 21st century education. And I just here, if you want to contact Mr. Colin, those are his information, can contact with him, and he's always ready to help you. And I just want to tell about our upcoming webinar hosted by One Village, of course. Mr. Lucas Madrinsky, we're going to have it on September 18. He's going to talk about a very important topic, environmental and sustainability education. And special thanks again to One Kwan Village, always hosting all those important and crucial webinars for the sake of our missionaries in education, our educators worldwide. And special thanks to you, Mr. Colin Wildy, for today's outstanding explanation and outstanding information that you gave to all our educators. And thank you all for attending it.